This is so fucking important for a woman to get into a beautiful relationship. Having a strong masculine identity is extremely important for the feminine because this gives you a strong understanding of the types of relationships you can create in your future with the masculine, which means with other partners. So taking away all the bougie terms of like masculine, feminine, and just putting down brass tacks, the relationship that you have with your father gives you a strong precedence to the relationships that you create with partners. Now, I want to just touch on this point just a little bit because majority of my clients identify as women, and this is just the nature of emotional growth because a lot of men feel like doing this kind of work is like wounded or weak. And this is again because of their own wounded masculine structure. So they tend to hyper focus on professional growth rather than emotional growth. And, and so that's why I like to address that for so many of the women out there who are seeking emotionally available partners, or who are seeking a partner who knows how to show up, a partner who understands a safe representation of holding space of being masculine, they must understand the responsibilities of what safe or like what a strong masculine is. Now, the problem is most women or a lot of women may not have had that from a father figure. And so because there's a dysfunctional connection or a dysfunctional process of how their needs were met by this father figure, unconsciously, that is the same projection that happens on their relationships. Remember, I said a little bit earlier that we always manifest the type of love that we're used to. This is because the brain just basically repeats what's in the subconscious mind. What it's used to, it unconsciously repeats. Now, here's two things I want to tell you in the way it can develop. On one end, if a girl has, take for example, a wounded masculine father who provides too much structure, too many boundaries, too much structure, because they feel like, not safe enough themselves. They haven't gone through the emotional, like understanding themselves. So they cut off emotion, too much structure, too much rigidity, that they tend to constrain the feminine too much. A girl child has the possibility of being extremely rebellious in her teens, primarily when she's discovering herself, and swing the other way and date men who are like absolute fucking badasses, the opposite of what their parent is, someone who's like has no fucking care for authority, any of that. How many of you have experienced that or have identified with that happening in your lives? Yes? Okay, beautiful. I saw some smiles on there. And it's normal because what's happening is this girl child is trying to rebel against the overstructure that she's had, and she's trying to discover herself in the relationship she can have. So she's pushing her way against it. Now, on the other end, sometimes it will go exactly in line. So it's one of the two extremes where if someone has had an emotionally unavailable father, this girl child, which needs the sense of time, presence, stability, safety, structure, all of these come from not just a father, but an emotionally present father. When these things, commitment, this is a huge thing. Commitment is actually a masculine term. It's not a feminine term, even though women want commitment so often. People think that it's women who desire it, but it's men who provide it. And it's a really beautiful cohesion of the yin and yang, masculine and feminine and all of that. But if a man lacks commitment in showing up for his family, the girl child, in this case, since we're talking about women, will have a poor understanding of what commitment may mean. So she will unconsciously, in this state, attract emotionally unavailable men, physically maybe not present men who have no strong idea of how to commit. Huge piece here, men who have a poor sense of taking accountability and responsibility. And this can make the feminine feel very unsafe. For example, yesterday, I'll just give you a really short example. I was in the gym and we were working out. My fiance and I were working out, and she came. I didn't even know what she did, but I was going through work in my head and I was feeling stressed, and she has no idea of that, right? So she came to try and show me a video on her phone, and I literally just pushed her aside without saying a word and walked past. And she felt very rejected, even if it wasn't my intention to reject her because I was going through something. She felt very rejected. Now, later on, so she did talk to me for like a good hour and a half, and I was trying to tell her that, listen, I was going through something. But later on, when we went home and we talked about it, she said, I felt very rejected. And I said, I understand, because it's natural that you could feel rejected by that action. I want you to know it wasn't my intention to reject you. but it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel rejected by it. And I said to her, and she said, there were people who saw me and they just saw you push me aside. And she's like, how do you think that makes me feel? And I didn't think of any of that fucking shit. Like, I was in my head about work and I was trying to get a project done and I couldn't get it done. So it was like running in my head at the gym, but she's not going to understand any of that. Now, it's easy for me to just say, well, who's asking you to fucking feel all of that? You should have understood that I was like stressed, or that the gym is not a place to show me videos, because I'm never on my phone and I never talk to anybody in the gym. But I recognize that I have to take accountability for one thing, the lack of communication of what I was feeling in that moment to tell her. And I said, yes, I still don't think you should have shown me that video at that time, but I communicated very poorly and I apologize. I pushed you aside. I didn't say, hey, there's something in my mind. I need space right now. I just pushed you away and walked away. Now, that is something typically that can happen or is a projection of an emotionally unavailable man. Would all of you agree? How many of you have experienced that in your past? Of an emotionally unavailable partner, not even a man. Someone not taking the accountability for their feelings in that moment and for how their feelings could affect someone else. Healthy masculinity is all about taking that accountability. Even if you have to do it after the fact and you have to post correct it, you come back and say, I'm really sorry. This is where I had or went through something that I didn't completely understand and couldn't explain to myself or explain to you. When there's a poor sense of accountability from the masculine in the household, and accountability is not just with finance or with physical strength and protection. It's also around emotional protection. It is the masculine's job to provide. I love explaining the masculine and the feminine as in anecdotes or analogies. Think of the masculine as a glass, a cup, right? Like this. As it's empty, it seems like it's not valuable to you at all. But a cup is not meant to be what you enjoy. What you enjoy is the liquid poured into it. So I just had like a vitamin C drink and it was so nice because it was tasty. But if I didn't have the cup, where would the drink be? All over the floor. It would be poured all over. It wouldn't have any value. I wouldn't be able to drink it. It would evaporate. It wouldn't be around. So the feminine, which provides the beauty, the flavor, the dynamic, the joy, that needs to also have the protection of the masculine around here. Now, here's something interesting I understood in my own life. If the masculine tries to, if the masculine is not present in terms of the structure, the feminine is always strained. So what the feminine now has to do is it has to provide its own fucking structure. To do that, it becomes too masculine. In terms of studying, for example, societies or like communities, I study a lot of anthropology and I do a lot of research around anthropology. In my opinion, in North America, we suffer from a very wounded masculine upbringing, which means without the presence of a healthy masculine, a lot of women have had to become more masculine themselves in order to survive in their society. So when you talk about how not having this father figure could have affected me, it may have made a lot of us more masculine than we need to be in terms of being the feminine. And for a lot of the masculine men that are out there, it may have either made us wounded masculine in terms of I had an emotionally unavailable father who shamed my emotions, so I'm going down that road, or it may have developed and made us hyper feminine in order to try and find a masculine that can come and show up for us. So in either sense, it creates an unhealthy development in what our own characteristics are, and those characteristics are not authentic. It is not authentic, in my opinion, having studied like masculine and feminine, but when something or someone offers help to the feminine, for the feminine to be like, fuck no, I got it. Why? Because they fear it being seen as a weakness. They fear accepting help, receiving gifts, allowing that as a weakness because they never had that in order to survive. They had to build up their sense of like, independence, strength. I can survive in this community. I have to fight for this in the workplace. Because again, we see in this society that we live in that commercialism, productivity, those are all the things we continuously fucking value. We don't value nurturing. We don't value feminine culture. We don't value rest. We don't value playfulness and joy and like art and beauty and just connection. Our entire basis of who we are is how many figures do you make? How much can you pay your bills? What car are you fucking driving? And so we lose touch of our own feminine nature. So in just this whole term, if you look at it on a bigger spiritual practice, North America has been missing a strong, healthy father figure in itself, which has unconsciously created wounded masculine and wounded feminine energy continuously throughout. So anyway, sorry, that was like a slightly spiritual kind of tangent. But when coming back to the aspect of the feminine, right? If you can understand, especially for like the women who are here right now, when I asked you that question, how would this allow me to show up presently? I want you to pay a little extra energy to the feminine characteristics that it would allow for you. If you had a safe and a present father, it would allow you to be more playful, more joyful. It would allow you to rest. It would allow you to be more demanding. Did you know being demanding is a feminine trait? That you have the right to sit like Cleopatra on your fucking throne and to say, I want this, I need this, and this is how I show up. I had a characteristic, I had a history of attracting, like I said, for those 4 women, hypermasculine women for those 4 years, women who basically had amazing jobs, had amazing careers. They were funding their whole like kids' lives and blah, 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 because I myself wasn't a good idea of masculine energy. And so I always attracted people who could take care of themselves. I never wanted to like, I only wanted to split a bill. Now, as I've been more and more in touch with my own energy, I've manifested someone who's so fucking demanding. Sometimes it's annoying, but it's a recognition of this is what the feminine deserves. And it inspires you to be a more accountable masculine and vice versa. This feminine now, knowing I have needs as the masculine to be nurtured, to be taken care of, and elements that I don't have, this feminine has to hold themselves accountable in how they show up. Nurturing in terms of being like more playful, allowing the whole space to be just a warmer, more connected, joyful like space, allowing beauty to exist around life to flourish. All of those things are very responsible on this end.